What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So what you saw there was pretty awesome, pretty hard pull, but it's also a pull that let's just say didn't end well for my engine. So if you follow me on Instagram or on TikTok, you probably already saw a little bit of hinting there, but today we're gonna dive in deep into the problem and see what exactly is going on. Alright, so here's the problem. As you guys can see here, I have quite a bit of oil that made a mess on my engine. So I am getting a blow-by. This was actually pushed up about like that. So I need to figure out what exactly is going on with the engine. Now if you had blow-by before in your engine, you probably already know that this engine is toast. It's not going to work well for us, especially with my plans of going up higher in boost. I do want to run 25 psi to 30 psi and possibly more depending if I don't get the power that I want. So with the increase in boost, that means we're just gonna have a worse blow-by when that happens. For those that don't know what a blow-by is, I am essentially pressurizing my crankcase, which is not good. They actually have a PCV or a positive crankcase ventilation system installed from factory. For this setup, I actually don't have that installed. I have a more open atmosphere breather setup. So it shouldn't have any source of pressure unless something else is actually not working right. I actually have a soon to install catch can to make up that PCV later on. There's two options for me. I could probably go with an external vacuum pump, or also I could create some sort of scavenging effect with the exhaust to see if I could make it work like that. But with that said, I do want to see how far the damage is or how far we could drive it without replacing the engine. So I'm probably going to drop it back down to 15 psi and see if we get that sort of pressure. I'm gonna go out on a limb and probably say that we're still gonna get that pressure, but I want to know anyway. So that brings up the next question: what are we gonna do with the engine? Well, because I know it's a project, I do have a spare engine, I do have a spare drivetrain, I do have a spare drive shaft. I'm just kidding. I don't have any of that stuff. What we're gonna do is we're gonna break stuff right now. We'll break it when we run it, and then as we kind of encounter this problem, we're just gonna have to keep replacing what breaks next. I'm not gonna overbuild the whole thing with max capacity of everything, because that's just going to be too much. So as we break stuff, and this build is essentially at that stage now, you start the build, you kind of start to finish the build a little bit, and then when you're testing, you're tuning, you're doing all that stuff, then that's when you start breaking all the weak parts, and from that then you go into upgrading. The upgrade part, I'm still really undecided, because I do really want to go with a stroker block, but I'm not too sure how my turbo setup is working. I need to do some more testing to make sure that I'm not just gonna blow up my stroker block, because I don't know, let's just say that one of the turbo is not injecting or is not pulling enough air out of one cylinder or two cylinders, because that could be a really bad thing. Now here's a quick disclaimer or information for those that aren't familiar with LS. Now if you're familiar with LS, you already know what they are capable of, but if you're not, they typically don't give you issues until a lot later on. But this block wasn't a factory block. It was already quote-unquote rebuilt by the previous owner. It was already on a boosted car, so it probably has seen its own share of abuse. I'm only including that because my previous car was a WS6, and that held 20 psi all day long for about 2 years. I ended up selling the car, but about 2 years, 20 psi. It was a 600 horse, and it was a daily. I drove it 5 or 6 days a week, and that was like a 50-mile round trip. So they were pretty reliable for this boost level. I was actually really surprised to see issues this early on in this build. I was expecting to have issues at 25, 30 psi, which I think it would have landed me somewhere around 700 to 800 horse on this car. Alright, so I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to be doing a boost leak test, but also my Leakdown tester right here, which I haven't used in a while, so you guys can see how dirty this thing is. I'm going to be testing for leakage to see where my leak is exactly, or at least hopefully I can find out what cylinder it's on. I mean, there is a chance that this leak could be happening at my turbo, but I just don't think so. But we'll see where exactly it is when we start testing this cylinder. Alright, so I have the Leakdown tester hooked up, and it's actually the first cylinder, at least. It's at about 20%, which isn't great, but it's also not super bad, which is good. I do hear some exhaust or some air going through the exhaust. The intake, not so much. So I have this one plugged in, and let's see here. Yeah, I don't see anything or hear anything on the intake. I do, however, hear some on the crankcase. Now I'm not sure if this is gonna come through in the camera, but if I plug out both of these port right here on the valve cover and let that pressure kind of build, you'll hear it kind of come out. So there is some leakage going through the crankcase, and what I'm gonna do is actually start going through. Oh man, I gotta remember to turn off the air compressor when I'm doing this, because that scared the crap out of me. Alright, so as I was saying, I gotta go ahead and basically follow my firing order and then get that piston in the top dead center and start checking each one and see which one has the worst leak. Alright guys, midpoint check. Looks like this cylinder is gonna be right at 30%. That's gonna be cylinder number 7. And if you guys actually listen through, check this out. That's with me blocking this side right here, and that gets louder. So definitely you could hear the leak on that. So let's go back on the board. Alright, so far I have 5 cylinder tested. Number 7 is being the highest at 30%. Number 6 is at 25%. And then the rest are okay. So I have 3 more to go. And this I'm testing it, by the way. This is your firing order. I'm only going to turn the crank basically 100 or 360 degrees. So starting with the top here at 12 o'clock. Then I turn it to 3 o'clock. And then I turn it to 6 o'clock. And I turn it to 9 o'clock. And that should be able to, well, let me explain. These two are paired together. So at 9 o'clock here at compression, I should be able to check number 1 and number 6. Then at the same time when I turn to 3 o'clock, I'll be able to check number 8 and number 5 and kind of so forth. That's probably a faster way to do it. If you guys know a faster way, let me know, because yeah, that takes some time. And the way I turn the crank, I just put the wrench right there. It's just actually enough room to turn it, so pretty good. And if you guys are wondering, no, I do not need to remove anything to change my spark plug. So all I'm doing is really just removing the plug wires and the spark plug. I basically designed the exhaust manifold so that, you know, when I have to change the spark plug, I don't have to remove anything in the car. That is something nice because I don't want to have to remove a turbo just to do what I'm doing now. Now I will say it will require some swivel and like little small adapter like this or extension, because some areas I just need like very specific length extension. But other than that, I could change the spark plugs pretty quickly. Well, looks like cylinder number 4 is at about 33-34%. Highest one so far. Alright, so we are not looking so hot. Cylinder number 3, 30%. Cylinder number 2, 25%. So yeah, that's not looking so good. I also managed to crack one of my spark plugs right there. Great, gonna need the replacement for that one too. Alright guys, so back from Riley. Ended up picking up 9 of the spark plugs because of this one that I messed up. I ended up picking up 9 because I'm gonna replace 1 and put those back. And then I'm gonna keep this as spares. They're like $3.50, so they aren't super expensive. Actually, to me, they're pretty cheap compared to other spark plugs that I've used before. This specific brand, the part number is BR7EF, or I guess they also go by 3346. They are really good spark plugs. And when I was trying to figure out what spark plug I want to go with, this one came up the most when I was doing searches. Just kind of going back to my old build, you know, I made 600 horse on this spark plug, and it never gave me a problem, not once. So, well, that's the first one I have issues, but that was my fault. Alright, so if you guys are looking for spark plugs for the LS, definitely check this out. Now, as far as gap, people will tell you that they run them at somewhere between 0.02 to 0.03. Personally, I just run them right out of the box. I just confirmed that everything is at about 0.025, and I've had pretty good success with that as well. Alright, so the car is back together. I'm going to go ahead and push it back and actually warm up the car and see if there's any big issues right off the get-go, because the last time I drove it here, I just kind of parked it and then stopped the car here, and that was that. Alright guys, so I'm just about ready to go and take out the car for a test drive to see how much damage it actually did. The good thing is it's not as hot as earlier, so good to go. So yeah, I just made more of a mess for myself here to clean up, and I guess we're gonna be opening up the engine. So yeah, stay tuned for that. With that said, that is gonna be it guys. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.